Keegan, how are you? How are you?
Very well in yourself, guys.
Yeah, wonderful. It's quite a nice long weekend as far as the football's concerned. Lots to talk about, but let me first paint the scene here. Bafana won, Ethiopia won. It's a tough battle. It's African qualifying for the World Cups. It is so intense. It's 1-1. A cross comes in. Bernard Parker, talented striker from South Africa, rises above the defence, unleashes one hell of a header. No one had a chance. Back of the net. The crowd goes wild. Only problem is Bernard Parker headed into his own net, and that crowd going wild, of course, were the Ethiopians. Keegan, let's just start about what's your take on that match as an actual match before we talk about the qualifications, the ramifications, all that kind of stuff.
It was, I must say, I really enjoyed the game. Well, before obviously the own goal. It was actually it's the first time I've actually watched a game in Africa where it almost had that European intensity to it. It's it was quick. There was chances at both ends. Obviously the pitch was useless. It was bouncy all over the place, and but it just had a good intensity. It had a good. It almost had like that little England, like an England Germany sort of feel to it. Tackles were flying in. Players were having a go at each other. Um, I actually thought it was a good game of football to watch at the end there. We South Africa, we had our chances. We didn't take them.
Mm.
Um, Ethiopia, their first goal was just a bit of poor defending by our part, and they took their chance quite well. It could have been a different story. I mean, they had a shot on target within 2 minutes into the game. Kune had to come and rescue us. But it was generally, I thought it was actually quite a good, how can you say, advert for football in Africa. It was quick. It was intense. It was really good. I must say, I can't fault the game itself.
Yeah.
But there are a few contentious issues around the game.
Well, it's football. I
Yeah,
mean,
Yeah.
it's football,
like,
yeah, the drama. But yeah, you're right, Keegan. There was a lot of intensity there, and I think both sides, you could see the sort of the importance of the match. Of course, World Cup qualifiers are very difficult things in Africa, hugely competitive, and of course, the travel is a big deal. We spoke about this last week, how difficult it is to go into deepest, darkest Africa, so to speak, and actually get a result. But now, what is happening with FIFA investigating this banned player situation?
Well, there hasn't been too much that's come out. The one thing is they're investigating. I think it's three sides, and Ethiopia are one of the sides that are being investigated now for obviously fielding an ineligible player, which apparently it picked up is supposed to have sat out due to a yellow card ban. Now, a yellow card ban is if you pick up too many yellow cards in the qualifiers, you have to miss a game, or it depends. You might have to miss two games, whichever the outcome is. And they had a they've had a player who was supposed to miss out the game before against Botswana, and he actually played. And so there's a lot of talk about Ethiopia could get docked those points for because they beat Botswana. So they could get docked those 3 points, which actually only leaves them on 10 points, and South Africa would be on 8 points, 2 points behind them. So it will go down to the last game if anything comes out of this whole appeal. I say don't hold your breath. This is FIFA we're talking about, and FIFA and CAF have to work together. And if you know anything about CAF, I don't even think they know about the situation just yet.
well, it took a while for it to get picked up, of course, that this guy was. Not only did he play against Botswana illegally, I mean, there was another round of matches that took place before this came to the fore.
Exactly. There's a lot of talk. There was even a talk that a player was booked twice on Saturday, which was quite crazy. He picked up I think it was a first yellow card for a bad tackle, and then there was a bad tackle on, sorry, the spitting incident to Dean Furman. Apparently, he picked up another yellow card. So, yeah, that's also another contentious like little issue around the game. What happened there, and how did that
No.
slip the referee's book?
Yeah,
I got to admire a guy's acting after he's got a second yellow card and isn't sent off. To keep a straight face and
Yeah,
hold your ground just in case.
that's
I
football.
mean,
I'm not surprised the
I
slightest.
don't see how a referee can actually miss that though. It's it's something.
yeah, you're supposed to write the number in the book, aren't you?
And they all had numbers on their jerseys, that's for sure. It wasn't real Africa where only half the team had numbers.
But Keegan, where to now for Gordon Iggesson? Of course, I've saw headlines today that his job is safe. People always say that. It's like we're backing the coach. As we established last week, that means you're out of here. But
Yeah,
now, okay, so he didn't. There was no. Okay, we did okay in the African Cup of Nations, but obviously we didn't get to the finals, didn't get to the semis, that kind of stuff. But now we're not going to the FIFA World Cup. This is a huge thing. I suppose when that coach was hired, there's a fair amount of hype around it. As always, the impossible is expected from the coach. But where to now for him? Does he know that there's no World Cup and just sort of institute a whole new restructuring process? What's the next step for him?
I think that would. Well, I think with Gordon, he knew that the task that he was coming into was a massive one. I mean, Pizzo didn't leave him in a very good space or leave him in a good situation when it came to World Cup qualifiers. Also, I mean, we drew all our home games. Never picked up a win. The African Cup of Nations, we were only really there because we hosted the African Cup of Nations. It's not that we really qualified for
Yeah,
it.
we can only really play if you host.
Yeah, so, and was it Gordon literally had, I think it was in total 6 weeks to prepare for that. Now, it might feel, when I say 6 weeks, it means 6 weeks plus all the friendlies that he had. And most of the time, the squads only assemble 2 or 3 days before that, before those friendlies. Um, I see him probably trying to. First of all, I do see him keeping his job. I don't think Safa will. I don't think they can afford to just get rid of him
Well,
quickly and try
exactly.
someone else.
Which is a good deterrent, really, I think.
I think it's really, really good. I think what we'll see now is a Gordon which will start restructuring probably South African football a bit better. Not just the national side. You might see him start taking charge of sorting out the under 21 structure or the under 23 structure. So there's actually a feeder base of players coming through constantly and being at that same level. There's a big, for me, it's a big problem is our sides don't play the same don't play the same football all the way through. And it's almost something like our rugby. You know, you don't see our Springbok side playing the same rugby as our Baby Box side does. And I think there's something that we could learn from other nations and things like that is if you start breathing them through a system from young, I mean, it just becomes sort of a production line of players after a while. New Zealand's probably one to look at on the rugby side, and if you look on the football side, you've got the Germans and the Dutch. They play the same type of football, same style, and it goes all the way through to the national level, and that's why they're constantly competing at the top of the chain. So
Yeah.
I think for Gordon, he needs to. He'll be hell of a disappointed. There's no doubt about that. But I don't think it's all doom and gloom. I think he's sort of got a settled squad at this point in time. He's got players that are willing to play for him and really, throw everything out in the park. It's just, yeah, Saturday was probably, the luck of the draw. I mean, it just didn't go our way with our own goal. But I don't think we were that poor on Saturday. I don't think we were totally outplayed. And I think if we did take our chances, we had a few one-on-ones with the keeper, just a little better decision making. We could have been the team on the other end.
Yeah, there was panic and I mean big lack of experience, I think, especially in the finishing. But then again, that's not a new problem. It's been there forever.
From my point of view, I've seen us play way worse than that game in Africa away. In fact, I'd probably go as far as to say it's probably one of the best performances I've ever seen us in Africa away.
Well,
Team's made progress under Gordon Iggesson. I really hope this isn't a debate with the powers that be to keep him on.
No, fair enough. It made progress, but you touched on an interesting thing about using like this factory of players that other countries get together. European teams obviously have a huge advantage there, and African teams are really up against it on the world stage. If you were to look at Gordon Iggesson going forward, which country would you think is best to sort of take a leaf out of their book and see how you can mimic how they've gone about the challenges of being an international side and how they've sort of maximized their abilities the best?
Oh, that's got a big one. I think, if you had to look at like an African side, I would say I think we'd have to look at your Ghanas if we had to sort of see what they've done. I wouldn't say their league is anything better than the PSL. They got players all over the world, and just somehow they managed to produce. They're not just producing a national side, but they're producing an under 21 side that was an under 23 side that was at the Olympics that, you know, just competes with the world. I mean, those players, the amount of players they're bringing through is absolutely amazing, and the talent that they're bringing through. We've got to understand that in this country, we're competing with two other major sports as well,
Sure.
and that is a big thing. You got to understand, like the Germany's, the Netherlands, okay, England is basically what, see, cricket and rugby competes with football in England. I mean that football doesn't compete with those two sports
Yeah.
over there. I think in this country, you're so tempted to rather go and play rugby or cricket than football at this point in time, and it's tough, and we've got obviously the massive class, classes. I won't say the different classes where you're living. Like we've got the mega wealthy to the mega poor, and somehow we need to try and bridge that gap. And every time it seems that we're on a page where we're going to find the talent through all these gaps, somehow there's a little corruption scheme that comes into our football, into our sport, and it just topples everything over, and we have to start from the word go, or just back from the start again, which is a massive problem for us. And I really do think that if as an African nation, if you had to look at who's doing something quite well, who's doing sort of their bit quite well and to compete with the world, I would say Ghana would be your model at this point in time.
Cool.
Do you think we've shown some improvement in terms of how we feed the national side? I mean, like, look, with the quality of the Premier League, the exposure of the Premier League as well. I think with SuperSport showing it, the statistics of how many people have been watching the Premier League recently has been very encouraging the last couple of years. Do you think a bridge can be seen? Do you think we're on the right track in certain respects?
I do believe that we're producing some quality youngsters at this point in time. If you look at that squad of Gordons at the moment, there's a few youngsters that are playing overseas where, it's we're in a much healthier position than we were probably about 10 years ago, even though that some would say 10 years ago our results, 20 years ago our results are probably looking a lot better. But I just think depth-wise, I think we are going on a bit of a right track. We're starting to get a lot more players and giving them the opportunity to go overseas and go trial overseas and try and make a living over there. And the nice thing about it is a lot of these players aren't just going over there and sitting on the bench.
Yeah.
A lot of them are going and making starting lineups. You got guys like Darren Keat, who's not even in the side yet. You've got Ranti, who's playing in Sweden. You've got your KG, who's playing for Crystal Palace. I mean, these are guys are starting every week. Tulani Serrero, when he's fit, he plays for Ajax Amsterdam. So I think it's much better than probably about 3-4 years ago. Like we had a few guys, Bongani Kamalo by Spurs and not making it even into the reserve team. I don't think that's a good situation to be in.
And picked. And we've improved in that respect because we were guilty of just thinking in this country like, well, some coaches you could see if this player's good enough to be in the squad in this team, he's going to be good enough for Bafana. And yet we fly in these guys and they're just out of practice. Some of them are all out of shape, and just showing no form at all to be in part of the national side.
It's just training ground pitch. Basically, that's all they've seen for the past like 4 or 5 months. It's just the side's training ground. They come in and do a bit of training and go
and then
home
play
and
away
never
in
see game
Ethiopia.
time at all.
That's hectic. That's hectic.
Yeah, well, Keegan, look, it's nice that you could paint a sort of put a bit of a silver lining on the weekend that's passed, and I think that's essentially why we like having you here, because you see things a little bit better than we do. Coming up, anything else that's current other than the sort of African worries?
We've got there's Confed Cup at the moment, Confederations Cup, which is sort of the dress rehearsal for the World Cup, which is on at this point in time. We've had Brazil beating in the opening game, beat Japan 3-0. And then we had Spain who beat Uruguay 2-1. We probably had Mexico losing to Italy 2-1, and then last night we had Nigeria beating Tahiti 6-1, which was quite a festival little game. It probably could have been about 12-1 if they actually just stuck away half their chances.
Amazing just how Tahiti come through as the Oceania qualifiers in the league.
Yeah, I actually had a chat to a mate of mine who's in New Zealand at the moment, and I was having an utter laugh. I was like, how does your national side not get past this team to make it to the Confederations Cup? It's like, there's just no comment to it.
New Zealand, if you think the cricketers are seen as sissy, they tell you footballers that they get rotten fruit thrown them in the street. It's rugby, rugby league, wife beating, and then maybe a bit of football. So I don't think we should be giving them a hard time whatsoever. There's like 7 guys that can actually are eligible for football. The fact they get 11 in the field is quite something.
That's no lie at all. But yeah, tonight there's a good game, or there's some more Confederations Cup tonight. I mean, Brazil versus Mexico should be a good one. Should be, well, obviously being the home favorites, Brazil should win it quite comfortably. But you never know in this tournament. I mean, last year we saw Spain and the USA in the final. The last time it was the last Confederations Cup here in South Africa. So, not Spain, sorry, Brazil and the USA. So
Yeah.
anything could really happen. You can see some of the sides are taking it real serious. So Spain really wants to win it. They've never ever won a Confed Cup, so they say they're out to win it all. Brazil's, yeah, it's like the All Blacks losing at home. You don't want it to happen because the crowd will turn on you very, very quickly. So it could be all fun and games over the past few weeks when it comes to international football. And next month there's a few friendlies. I mean, there's a few big sides coming to South Africa. Man City are here.
Mm-hmm.
I think they're playing SuperSport United and they're playing AmaZulu. And then I think there's one more. I think it's unconfirmed though, but there should be another side coming. I think it's Spurs that should be down here in the country.
Oh,
So
great.
there's a slowly but surely we're going to start seeing some friendlies, some international sides visiting our shores.
Well, there's no substitute for Champions League football, but it's something for them. Keegan, where can we find more of you on the internet?
You can catch me at www.thepundits.co.za, or you could follow us on Twitter at thepunditssa, or if you want to tweet me, it's at Keegan Kruger on the Twitter.
Great stuff, Keegan. Thanks so much. I'm going to cut you off there. We've got a whole hour of talking about the British and Irish Lions. I'm not
That
sure.
one-way festival.
Yeah, well, so far it's been one way, but this Saturday they've got the big test match. Thanks so much, Keegan. We'll catch you back next Tuesday.
It's a
Be
pleasure.
sure to read more about Keegan's works at thepundits.co.za.